Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the latest Royal College of Nursing Q&A webinar on our campaign Moving Forward with Pay. My name is Mike Adams. I'm the Royal College of Nursing Director for England. As I said, this is the latest in a series of webinars. We're looking forward to answering some of your questions on our pay campaign and how we've got to the position we're in at the moment. Joining me this evening, we have our Trade Union Committee Chair, Graham Reevey, who, if you've seen these webinars before, Graham has been on a couple of times to answer your questions. And also join us for the first time tonight, we have Mike Travis. Mike is a children's nurse from Liverpool, and he's a member of the Trade Union, elected member of the Trade Union Committee. He's a workplace steward for the RCN and safety rep, I think. Was it Mike? I think. Sorry. We are open to your questions. We've got an hour to get through as many as we can. Please do submit your question. We really want to hear from members. We really want members to get involved with this and then to talk to each other about it, about how we move this agenda forward. So I'm going to kick things off and just first of all ask Graham if you can just bring us up to speed, give us an opening update on where we are with the pay process, how we got to this position, and kind of any key messages to start with.
Thank you very much, Mike, and good evening, everyone. It's really good to be back again, although I think people must be getting sick of the sight of me. But I can promise you this, I'll be back, and I'll be back for more, and my whole point of my purpose and the purpose of my Trade Union Committee is actually to make sure that you, the members, are kept informed and engaged all the way through this process. So, Mike, the question you asked me there was, where are we with where we are on pay? Well, we launched our campaign, it's 2 weeks and 3 days ago, I think now, and we launched it on the Friday, and we launched it on a public holiday weekend, and we were very cognizant of the timing of that, and it wasn't the best time that we could have picked, but it was the best time and the most optimum time that we could launch that in order that our members got themselves on the front foot. And that's important because that is about this whole idea. This is a member-led, member-involved, member-engaged campaign. So the campaign has been running for 2 weeks. This week's project, or last week's project, was around actually people helping us out and recording some short videos. That's not had as big an uptake as I would have liked to have seen, being frank. We don't have as many people have actually posted those videos on to actually put a face to the pay campaign, because it's fair enough the Royal College of Nursing calling for a campaign and calling that we want a pay rise, but actually until the public start to see the face of nurses, until the politicians start to see the face of nurses, and that becomes a very personal issue for those individuals on what a pay increase like this would mean for them as members, for them as nurses, and for the profession as a whole. So that was last week's project, and this week's project is going to be a bit of the same, but actually what we want to start to do now is start to engage with our branches and to make sure that perhaps even your branch might be holding an AGM at the moment. A lot of the branches are, but pay needs to be an issue. Pay needs to be now being talked about within the workplace. And some of the other things that will be going on is we're doing these national webinars. We need to get that more into the local space. In terms of the negotiation itself, Mike, we have a pay claim. That is not a pay award. We need to be very clear in that. This is only a pay claim, and this is where the unions are at this moment in time. We are making a pay claim. The government are the people who hold the purse strings and the people who control the timeline. All of the trade unions have collectively asked that the pay award for 2021 be brought forward to this year. And that collective ask remains in situ. And that collective ask is one that we are demanding that nurses are paid this year. Why is that? Because we don't think it's fair, we don't think it's appropriate, and we think it's goddamn immoral that the government would expect us to wait until April of 21 in order to actually get a pay rise. That's in essence where we're at. We don't know whether the government are going to use the pay review body process. We don't know whether they're going to go into individual negotiations. Frankly, they're not telling us, and we need some activity in order for us to actually start to gear towards that. But we are ready. We are ready with the evidence we need. We're ready with the negotiation tactics that we need, and we're ready to go in to make sure that we secure a pay rise which is fair pay for nursing.
Thanks, Graham. I wonder if you could just follow that up. We've had the first question in, and it's a question. Obviously, the Royal College of Nursing has published a figure of 12.5% as our ask as a pay rise, and the question that's come in is a member that's saying that they're pleased the RCN have believed that we deserve a pay rise over 10%. But there's a general feeling that that might not be enough, and I wonder if you could give a bit of background on how that figure was, how we came to that figure, and whether that figure is something that we would go back and review.
Oh, that's quite a tough question, Mike. The toughness is not the toughness is in the end of the question rather than in the beginning of the question. I'm going to be perfectly frank. Okay, so how did we get to the 12.5%? Well, the story I've said this in numerous webinars, and I'll continue to say that. Hopefully, we'll be able to actually finish talking about this eventually, because actually the reason is quite simple. In the main, our members were surveyed. April into May. I think I've said before in previous webinars it was February into March, but it wasn't. It was April into May. So an error on my part. And that figure, that date was 450,000 members were emailed the survey. Every member that had an email address registered with the RCN were emailed. The members came back. They told us what they felt the pay rise should be. They told us things around their health and safety, things around their working environment, things around what the value of nursing would be and how that would feel to them, things around how the government valued them, how the public valued them, how they were valued by their colleagues, and how they were valued by managers. All of these things came in to the questionnaire that went out. And some people have been quite critical of the timing of that. But actually, all of these things needed to be sought out from our members at that time, because we were in the process of forming a claim and forming opinions around how we would deal with PPE, etc., etc. So we needed that feedback at that time. And I think what has happened is 42,000 members have responded to that survey, Mike. 42,000 members, that's almost 4 times what normally respond to an RCN survey. And that takes in just under 10%, probably about 9% of our membership in total. And that's an incredible, valid survey of our members. So that's where we got the figure from. In addition to that, we looked at some modelling that was provided by the London School of Economics and what the costings would be. We also looked at some evidence around our retention and and what the likelihood is around people who are going to leave the profession, and we looked at what the attractiveness of the profession would be in relation to graduate pay. So all of these things gave us and gave the committee a lot to discuss, and we took the advice of the Pay Working Group, which is the group of staff who are significantly expert in this area. And as a trade union committee, we came up with the figure of 12.5%. We then went and checked that figure with the members who are in elected positions within the organisation or appointed positions. So we took it to council, we took it to the forum chairs group, we took it to the professional nursing committee. We invited all of the chairs of the branches to attend the board meetings and we took it to them. We took it to the representative committees. We took it to the students committee, the healthcare support workers committee. We really covered about 180 elected members, and these are people that have been elected by members to represent members. So that was our way of checking that out. And that's where we came back with the 12.5%. And just to add some weight to that, when we had an offer to actually get to a collective position from the other trade unions, we went back out to that group of people and they unanimously supported the trade union committee stance that we should go and we should stand firm, and we should stand firm for nursing, and we should stand firm for nurses, even though that meant us having to stand out on our own.
Okay, thank you. A question for Mike then. Let's hear from Mike for the first time this evening. With the pay asks in the public domain now, and there's been different figures bandied out. There's the same question that I just asked Mike. The person who sent that in is asking a question around that they'd love to raise wave an RCN flag and have RCN badges, but felt a little awkward having to use banners from other unions at a recent protest. What's your message to kind of members who are interested in protesting and are not sure which banner to hold up and whether to get involved as an RCN member or not?
Sorry, Mike, can you unmute your microphone, please?
There you go. Sorry about that. Thanks, Mike. That's quite a simple answer for me, is always hold up your RCN banners with pride. Even though we're not organising those protests, I would be saying to members, go and be there and be part of that, because that adds to the general messages that the NHS and nursing especially has been undervalued for the last 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and next question from Julie. Back to Graham then. How do you plan to ensure that non-NHS members also get a fair pay rise?
Thanks again, and thanks, Julie, for your question. I'm going to ask you to wait a second before I answer it, because one of the things that I didn't do was answer the second part of the first question that I got, which was in relation to the review, and would you review the figures? And the reason why that's a very difficult question is we've already shown our hand to the government, and we have shown our hand to say that 12.5% is what the trade union has considered to be an adequate pay rise. So actually to review that figure now would not be a good place to be in terms of a negotiating position. What we do have to do is we have to stick firmly to our guns and say this is our pay claim and this is what we want. So hopefully that fixes that question and answers that question. Sorry I missed that out. Now Julie, your question. The last meeting of the Trade Union Committee, we had a long conversation on this, okay? And Julie, one of the things that I have said all along through this is that this is not fair pay for nursing, this is not fair pay for NHS nursing. This pay campaign is fair pay for nursing. And at the last Trade Union Committee, we were very, very firm to say that we needed work done on the independent sector. And we realised that the term I used is a rather big elephant to eat, but we need to take it off a piece at a time. And we need to make sure that our members in the independent sector are being well represented, and we are looking for fair pay for them. So the pay working group have been assigned to carry out a piece of work on how we can look at that and how to take that forward. But fair pay for nursing is about fair pay for nursing, not just NHS. That's one element of that. And we've asked that work to be done, and we've asked that to be done quickly, and we're expecting that back to the Trade Union Committee within the month, so as we understand the direction of travel, and that will then involve our members in the same way that this NHS pay campaign is involving members within the NHS. We want to get involved with members in the independent sector, and also for some members who are in the independent sector who are actually providing NHS services, but because they're working for general practitioners, it's an independent business, therefore an independent employer. We need to do some work in these areas. We realise it. It will form part of the campaign, and we will be able to take that forward. And hopefully, Julie, you'll be joining us in that campaign as we move forward together.
Thank you, Mike. Back to you. An interesting question here, easy for me to say, an anonymous question, but this did generate quite a lot of discussion on social media a couple of weekends ago. So someone has written in, I'm traumatized by the recent pictures of protests I've witnessed on social media, staff covered in blood, not very professional. Do the RCN worry that these actions could undermine our pay claim? So this is one example of an unusual type of protest maybe, but are there risks with more extreme protesting, do you think, Mike, or is it something that should be in the armoury? You're on mute again, sorry, Mike.
I have to say, Mike, is that when I saw photographs of that outside Downing Street, and I've seen it around a couple of the protest areas around the country, I was not comfortable with it at all. I think what we have to do is we need to get across the message that it's about the value of our care that we give. We shouldn't just emphasize one part of it. It's about the value of the care that we give to our patients, and of course, in this situation, to our staff, to ourselves. And so, no, I found that very uncomfortable, and a lot of my friends and colleagues also found that uncomfortable as well. Be creative in the way that you want to campaign, but I think there are limits to how we can shroud wave, I would like to say. The important part is to keep the public on our side and not to drive them away.
Okay, yeah, thank you. It's a tricky one, definitely.
And it is really, really difficult, because once you get into a protest, you know, you've got to keep very focused on what you're protesting about. If you're protesting about pay, you talk about pay.
Yeah. Okay, and I mean, it's certainly an indication of how passions run high on this issue, and how people nurses don't feel valued absolutely at the moment. Okay, back to Graham.
Mike, can I just come back on,
sure.
the issue about nurses don't feel valued? I mean, when we talk about being valued, do we mean that we're not being valued by the public, or we're not being valued by the government and our employers? And we need to be precise about what we mean by we're not being valued. And it's really important, again, is that if we're talking about pay, is that in the work situation, it's just not about pay, is it? Because it's about terms and conditions of services as well. It's about the potential of not having enough PPE. It's about having breaks and being fed and being watered. That's in that value thing. It's a big issue to talk about. But nurses are really reevaluating the way they're being supported and employed within the workplace, which drives that along.
Yeah, Graham, do you want to add anything to this point?
I just think, and what I think is the desperation of nurses and healthcare professionals, the desperation that they must have felt to actually drive them to actually this type of protest, because it's a protest that's looking for an aversion reaction. You know, it's not a protest. It's actually it's in your face. And there is space around sort of protests to actually allow for that to happen. But I just think we need to be very cognizant that we want to take the public with us on this journey. And we need to have our public supporting us. And I think that we need to be able to look at good ways of engaging without shocking. But I think that sometimes mechanisms for shock are what's required. And it depends on who you're aiming your protest at. If the protest is about shocking the government, I have no issue around that. But if it starts to bring in and starts to sort of lessen any public support, I think we just need to be cautious around how we use that. But Mike's points are all totally valid in that space. There was a lot of discomfort around that, and certainly, it wasn't the most comfortable feeling that I had in my, in my heart as I watched it.
Okay, thanks both. We'll move on to the next question. I'll stick with you, Graham. So this is a question from Chris. Thanks for sending this in, Chris. Will this 12.5% be a starting point for negotiations and therefore reduced as the negotiations progress, or is it a red line? You may want to give a bit of background about how these things work and how members would be included in that decision.
Yeah, of course. It's I think first and foremost, Chris, the point of this is it's a negotiation. Okay. A negotiation means that there is give and take on both sides, or you would hope that there would be give and take on both sides. And that give and take can sometimes be about the figure. It can sometimes be about other things. But what we're very clear on, is within the sort of red lines that we put down at the moment. The red lines that we put down is, number one, we're not going to be talking about holidays. We're not going to be talking about shift enhancements. These are red lines that are in play. So basically the unsocial hours are not things that we're going to be talking about here at all. So what else can the organisers talk about? Well, first of all, it depends on whether we get into a negotiation or not. The peer review body takes a view of all the evidence and then comes to its conclusion and then makes a recommendation. If the government choose that route, then that's the route that we'll go down. And if the peer review body make a recommendation that's acceptable, and that recommendation is 12.5%, then I'm absolutely going to be flabbergasted and astounded, because it's not what I expect to happen. What I do expect to happen is whatever the offer is, I don't expect it to be 12.5%. So therefore, what I would be expecting to do is going back to our members to say, you asked us for 12.5%. This is what's on offer. This is what do you want us to do about it? First and foremost, do you want us to accept it? And if you say no, what do you want us to do? And that's the same if we go down the negotiation route. We will try our hardest to get the best deal that we can out of that negotiation, but will that be 12.5%? I'd like to think we'll get very close to that, or as close to that as we can, and we'll be negotiating towards that 12.5% all the way through this. But what will happen is, if that is a negotiated outcome, we will again take that back to our members. Remember what I keep saying in these meetings and in these webinars: member-led, member decision making, member involvement, and member engagement, all the way through that. That's the priority of the Trade Union Committee and the priority of the Royal College of Nursing.
Okay, thanks, Graham. Okay, one from Mike now. Will this be a single year deal? And is the Trade Union Committee prepared to not negotiate any more multi-year deals?
Thanks, Philip. A really interesting question. Puts me on the spot. I think the important thing to remember that this pay claim by the RCN this year, and I think by the NHS Staff Council trade unions, is for a single year pay deal. And that's what we're aiming for. That's about a 12.5% claim for this year only. But one of the things is about talking about the future is that you should never, ever tie your hands into saying we will not do this, we will not do that, because we don't know what the economic conditions will be. Where we've got, when we look into the future, we're coming up to Brexit. We're coming up to a government that's got an 80-seat majority, and we have to work within that political environment. So I can say here and now, off my own bat, is that this is a single year deal, and the future is the future.
Okay, Thank you. Graham.
Yes, Mike.
I've got another one for you, if you're not unsurprised. Okay, so this one relates to, I can't remember which other union has come out with a figure, maybe to ask rather than a percentage. So this question has come in. Just wondered why a percentage was used and not an actual amount. For example, say £4,000 per nurse. 12.5% is a huge amount for an 8D, but for a band 5, it's much lower.
Yep. I can see where the questioner's coming from here, because it's an important one, and one that I think it's important that we address. The last few years within the NHS Staff Council, we have done a very, very good job at looking after the low paid within the workforce. Now that's within the NHS workforce. Now that means that we've actually had a concentration on making sure that the living wage was implemented, and that we've actually done away with band 1. In the main, there are still a few people who are still within that, and that's because of the way that pay progression goes on. So, number one, I am not against protecting low pay workers, but what has happened is because we have spent so much time looking after the low paid, the middle part of the organisation, your bands 5, 6 and 7, there's been compression of their salaries. Also, in relation to the nursing profession itself, I understand that a pay rise of 12.5% is a massive pay rise to an 8C or an 8D or an 8B even. But the whole thing about this is we need to protect the professional integrity and the professional career pathway of nursing. In order that we can secure safe and effective staffing levels, we need a nursing structure and a professional structure that will support that. How many band 5s do you know that actually won't apply for a band 6 because actually going on to a band 6 will mean less money? How many band 6s do you know or have you heard of that are actually not wanting to apply to go to the band 7 role because they would lose money? What we're trying to do here is to make sure that a pay rise is fair for all, and it goes across and it cuts across every pay band, all across Agenda for Change. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback on the microphones tonight. I don't know what's going on. So I'm hoping that people can hear me clearly. But so that's the element that I'm talking about here. So we didn't go for a across the board figure because we don't think that that's fair. We think it's much fairer to go for a percentage pay increase. Now, it's fair enough me saying I think it's fairer, or we, the Trade Union Committee, think it's fairer. But we have a pay strategy and a pay working document. And we sent that pay working document out to all of the branches and to all of the committees to consult on that. And all of them came back and said they want an uncomplicated pay rise of a single percentage across all bands, and they want it this year and a 1-year deal. So it's not just the Trade Union Committee that thought that. Again, this element of member engagements came into play, and we went back to our members to actually make sure that we're in tune with what they were asking.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Okay, Mike.
Mike, can I just come back on that?
I think so.
I think it's really interesting because a lot of the protest groups that keep talking about pay equality, and what they don't seem to recognise is that Agenda for Change is an equal value job for equal value wages in relation to the NHS. So if you started to award just a cash sum, it no longer becomes an equal pay system, and that will have problems in the very near future. So what we have to do is that, and I think Graham will agree with this, is that we've taken into account this issue about wage compression, because when you've got wage compression, no one is a winner, because at the end of the day, the whole of the wage structure is being devalued and forced down. And for band 5 nurses especially, 66% of all nurses in the NHS are stuck at band 5, delivering 80% of the care. what we have to do is start to now to look at how jobs are banded, and that gives them the opportunity to be rewarded for their job. But it's really important that we don't lose sight that we do work in an equal pay system.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move us on, Mike. Now, you can't answer this with one word. We need a bit of background to this of how this might work or not work. But here's a question that's come in. If we don't get our pay claim, are RCN strike ready?
Well, I'd love to be able to say that's above my pay grade, but it's not. And the thing is that the RCN now is in a different position than it was in 3 years ago. And as we head up into this pay negotiation, is that there will be work within the RCN that we need to do to prepare ourselves for the potential of strike. And that means we need to clear up all our membership data, make sure we've got people with the right addresses, the right phone numbers, the right email addresses, the right Twitter accounts, the right Facebook accounts, in order to get that message out. And the people that will decide whether we will be strike ready at the end of the day is when the RCN puts the government's offer to them to either accept or refuse. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Graham, is there anything you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, I think, so there are, if you're talking about is the RCN strike ready, then, there are two elements to that. Is the organisation ready for strike in terms of the structures and things that it has in place? Well, we have developed an industrial action handbook, which was done this year in time for Northern Ireland going out on strike, and also to support the action in Guernsey. We have developed a strike pay policy, again, which has been all consolidated by the Trade Union Committee and approved by Council. The difficulty that we will have is the difficulty that I was talking about earlier on, where I actually asked for members to do videos, and basically we've got a very, very low response. We've got 450,000 members, and in order for us to be able to take us into industrial action at a future time, number one, we need to actually register and record a dispute. Number two, we then need to get a turnout of 50% of the membership within the area of that dispute. And of that 50%, we need to get over 50%. It's 80% of that 50% need to vote in favour of strike action and vote in favour of industrial action. It's really, really complex and a really high hurdle to actually climb over with the new trade union legislation. So we need to get our branches engaged with members, our members engaged with other members, and we need to get that in place before I would say, as an organisation, we are strike ready. But do we have the structures in place to do it? The answer to that question is yes.
Okay. Thank you both. I mean, I'll just add a little bit to that, in that we've seen what can happen when members get involved and members drive things forward. In the fantastic example we saw in Northern Ireland at the beginning of the year, when front and centres members spoke up together as one and saying, this is unsafe, there's not enough staff here, this is unsafe, and we should all take heart from that of what can be achieved when everyone comes together behind a message. It's not what me as a director does, it's not what this member of staff does or that member over there does. It's got to be what we all do together moving forward. That's my plug for Unity for the night, in terms of what that has got to happen to get to that point. Okay. Right, I think that question was originally to Mike, so we'll go to Graham next, and we'll take this one head on now. Does the RCN not believe that their members are worth 15% pay rise?
Well, I think I answered a similar question to that earlier on, Mike, in relation to where we are and how we got to the figure of the 12.5%. I think nurses are worth 50% pay rise. If you want an honest opinion and a personal opinion, I think nurses are worth an incredible amount to the community that we serve, an incredible amount to. So, yeah, I think that what we've done is we've developed a pay claim, and we've developed that on an evidence-based approach to that pay claim. So it's not about my feelings and what I think around this at all. It's actually what I can send a negotiator into a meeting with the power of the evidence behind that, in order that that claim can be supported and can be developed in that structured way. Now, the RCN have stood up and stood loud and proud for nursing, you know, as we've taken this forward, and that has left us in quite an isolated position at times. But I'm glad that we're in a position now where there is a collectiveness around what I see now is a very substantive pay claim, from all of the trade unions and the other campaigning organisations, which we can all work towards, and we can do that together. We just need to concentrate on the fact that we want a substantive pay claim, and we want that for our members, and we want it before Christmas.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mike, following on from that then, how do we get the message across to other grassroots campaigners or different campaigns that we're all in this together, and our fight is with the government? How do we coalesce around maybe slightly different asks, but actually the fact that we all want a substantial pay rise for nursing colleagues?
I think the way forward is going to be that within the RCN, the Trade Union Committee will keep to its message of 12.5%, because that's our negotiation stance now, and we can't really change that. And what we have to do is to convince our members who are in the grassroots campaigns that we're supporting. And the fact is, we are listening to you. The fact that we're here tonight on a webinar, and I'm doing another webinar on Monday, and there's a whole range of other colleagues on the Trade Union Committee that are also webinars. It's all about, in the end of the day, is about coming in and starting to form as an organisation and pushing forward. The more divergence there is between, you know, 15% or 12.5%, because they're all opening gambits on a negotiation, is that it leads to misunderstandings, and it's the trade unions, the staff side trade unions within the NHS that will be negotiating this deal. And at the end of the day, we need to win that argument to bring them on board and back into going to your branch meetings and being more positive about the RCN position.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Time is moving on, so we'll try and rattle through a few more. Okay, so 2 questions have come in of a similar line, but I'll see if Graham can tackle these. Around how can we demonstrate when we're unable to be in a group larger than 6? Obviously, you know, we know what the situation in the country is and where things might be heading again. So how do we keep the momentum of a campaign going without being able to join together in physically large groups?
I had a quick thought there as you were actually asking that question around 666, you know, the number of the beast, etc., in the Oban films, you know, and
taking a turn,
hitting the nation there, Mike. I have never been so frustrated in all my life. I was due to speak at Glasgow a week and a half ago, and I was due to speak at Liverpool last week, and these gatherings of people were, for all the right reasons, cancelled. So it's so frustrating for us all, because actually we want to take to our feet. As a trade unionist, I want to march the streets. I love a good march, right? Actually, it sort of does something for me. Actually, you know, it's something that, you know, spurs on my heart and actually makes me feel as if I'm doing something physical. But I don't know what's in front of us. But what I do know is that we need to think and think smartly around how we are going to engage and how we're going to get this message forward. That's why I was so sort of keen around the video messages. That's why I'm so keen on actually getting posters up in the workplaces. That's how I'm keen on getting the badges and things like that out to our members. I hate this idea of everybody has to wear a badge, but by jings, what can we do in these times? We need to be able to protest and protest effectively. We need to use the social media platforms that are available to us and any other accesses that we can use to actually get to the members and get to the public. And we need to really get right up the nostrils of the politicians in Downing Street, because they're the decision makers and they're the ones that are refusing to make the decisions on that. They're the ones that are refusing to make any investment in the people that are running the health service. And don't let them kid you. It's not about the bricks and mortar or the new medicines that you find in the health service. It's about the people. The people are the important part of the health service. If we didn't have nurses and nursing and our healthcare support workers and our other people actually looking after patients, where would the health service be? It would be full of empty buildings. Full of empty buildings. So we need to campaign. I don't have the answer. But answers in a postcard to Graham Reevy, please, because I'd love to hear how you are actually thinking of how you can take this one forward.
Thanks, Graham. Okay, a comment that's been posted, which I'll see if Mike wants to respond to, and it kind of based on probably some of the conversation that we've had tonight. So the comment is, it's not for members to stand up, it's for the RCN to stand up for its members. With members leaving in droves, it's really important to get the message right. I would just question that last bit in that I don't actually think that's factually correct, in that we've got highest membership levels ever for the college. But Mike, have you got any comment?
Oh, I have, and I've been nursing for 40 years this year and come up to retirement, but I've been a trade union rep in other industrial environments where we've gone out on strike. And the only way, if you're going to have industrial action, is that you have your members are the voice. When I was on the agenda committee, we used to decide things for the agenda, Congress agenda would be, would the members have a debate on this? Would their voices add to the discussions? And it always was me. It's our members that are the most powerful tool that the RCN has. And if I go back, I remember in 2011 when we had an emergency Congress resolution on having confidence in the then Jeremy Hunt and the Secretary of State for Health about the NHS Reform Act. We had a debate there, which was one of the finest debates on the delivery of care that I've ever heard in my life, and it changed part of that act, and that was because members came together and were common in their cause. It was about patient care. Today, they need to be common in their cause about their pay, and they have to stand alongside the trade. As a trade union committee member, I don't stand in front of them or above them. I stand with them and amongst them, and it's when you get at that level where you are all moving forward in the same way, we are well organised, and it's all about organisation. That's when we start to win arguments, but we can't do it on our own.
Okay, Graham, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah. I'm going to reflect on what a member said to me on Facebook in relation to this question, because I think it was a really good analogy, and I said I was going to use it. I didn't think it would be used this quickly. So imagine your RCN is your membership of the RCN is a bit like a membership to a gym. You pay it every month, and do you expect to get fit just because you pay your membership to your gym every month? Do Do you expect to for your muscles to start growing and for your physique to start to become the Charles Atlas figure? Many of you won't recognise that. It's a bit of an older type of joke. But do you expect that to happen? And yet you expect, just by paying your dues to the RCN and not taking any active part, that everything's going to happen and just be handed into your lap. It's not like that. A trade union was formed out of workers united, working together, and working together for the common good of the worker. That's what a trade union is. It's not something that you sign up a subscription to and get ownership of. It's about you looking after each other and looking after the community of trade union membership that you're involved in. So until we can get over this idea that the RCN should do everything for us, actually, you are the RCN, not the RCN staff. The RCN staff help us to organise and to get ourselves into a position. But you are the RCN. You are the people that belong there, and you are the union. So, you know, please, if it's a gym membership you want, go and buy one. But if it's a member of the trade union you want, then come along, join the RCN, but come along and join the RCN with an active head and a participant. I've said it before, it ain't no spectator sport, this. This is about us being engaged and involved together.
Yeah, and I think I'd just reflect. Sorry, Mike, carry on.
On that, and I think it's really important if you see the success of the Northern Ireland pay campaign and the fact that members went out on strike there, it won't be trade union reps going on strike. If you're going to be strike ready, you've got to be individually ready to take that political act. But that was succeeded because our reps over there worked really hard to organise, and their members were believed in their case, and they won that case because they spent some blood, sweat and tears fighting for what they believed is right. So the whole issue around this issue is that you've got to believe in what you want, and if you have that belief, then you have to stand up for it, you know.
Yeah. And that absolutely resonated me when we were seeing the coverage of that. When you see nurses on a picket line in the cold talking to the press about what nursing means to them and how their patient safety is front and centre of their minds, and how, you know, that absolutely resonated with the public, which absolutely puts pressure on the politicians. Absolutely key to all of this work are people talking about their own passion, their own values of nursing. 100%. Okay. Well, a comment for Mike to comment on. So this has come in, even though I've been promoted up 2 pay bands and taken on much more responsibility, I'm not earning much more than 2010. I've started to wonder why I've taken on so much training. I mean, you've got a comment on that and how that relates to this moment in time?
Well, it's very difficult to comment on an individual perception or event like that. But I think one of the big problems that we have in nursing is that the majority of nurses are shift workers, and their employers see their shift payments as something separate from their salary. So when you get a promotion and the shift supplements are not there as often or not there at all, you actually can take a pay cut. And for me, and I've been arguing it for a while, is that when you're promoted, you should be promoted from your position of pensionable pay to make sure that if you're taking on more activity or more responsibility, then you don't lose any pay. Now it's changed a bit now because there's no longer an overlap of bands, but it's still something that we need to do and talk about at a national level about what do we mean by promotion, because promotion is more than just taking on another job. It's about actually being paid for that job. Also, of course, is the job being properly banded in the first place? Because we know a lot of jobs, a lot of nurses' jobs are not particularly well banded. And an example of that, because I'm a band 5, is I always have this big debate with a colleague of mine who's a ward pharmacist, and they claim that as a ward pharmacist they are responsible for the protection of our kids in hospital for drug administration. And I say it's the person who administers that drug has got the final say in the safety of drug administration. We need to start to think about differently how we describe our jobs and our roles.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I've lost my questions. Okay, one for Graham then. We're 10 minutes out, so we've got a couple more questions. Just something that's come in. Becca, I think, has posted a question as a student nurse. Just thank you for that comment, Becca. I hope the answer we've given around where we came to 12.5% has helped your understanding of that. But that is the aim for this of these sessions. Okay, so Graham, just a question about workplace reps then. So we know we've got a fantastic group of members who take on the 3 roles of workplace representation. How do you see them taking part, actively taking part in this campaign? Where is there real value to this, moving this piece of work forward, do you think?
I think the workplace reps are people who have decided to take on that role within the NHS. So where are they good? They're good at passing information across. They're good at making sure that people are well informed within the workplace, and they're good at signposting people to the activities that are taking place. Now, that doesn't matter whether you're a steward, a learning rep or a health and safety rep. That whole aspect of they are good at dealing with the people. They are people. That's they actually care. They've taken on this role because they care. They care about the members. They care about the membership of the Royal College of Nursing. Now we've got quite an advantage because actually the majority of workplace reps, representatives, are actually attached to branches, right, and are actually involved in the branches. So what we need to do is get the members who are not engaged and becoming part of the branches and becoming part of the campaign. So it's a very much a signposting, coordinating and leading in a leadership role. But you don't need to be a workplace rep to be a leader in an active campaign. You can be involved in the RCN in other ways, or not even yet involved in the RCN in order to become a leader within a campaign. You need to be able to talk constructively about what we're asking for, why we're asking for it, and make sure that your friends, your family, your buddies in the pub, if we ever get back to one, all of these people all know why nurses deserve a 12.5% pay rise. So the workplace reps is one element and one spoke within that big wheel of the RCN, but that big machine around how we get everyone together, and that whole group of 450,000 members are actually asking for fair pay for nursing. They're one cog in the wheel, as are the trade union committee, as are the staff. But the most important cog are, and we've got different classes of members here that we're talking about. But the biggest cog in that wheel is member. Member permeates its way through all of that. So that's who we need active, and we need our workplace reps to help us to do that.
Okay, so we'll go for one final question, I think. We'll start with Mike, but Graham, you might want to add something at the end. So a comment that I think is a really good point that we're probably going to have to address as we go through this. One of our viewers has put in, I just worry that the public will struggle to get behind us when there will be many job losses. The Tory press will headline the higher grades, quoting, nurse managers have requested £9,000 pay rise, and there's, we've already seen a bit of that dubious messaging, shall we say, from from certain kind of government sources. So what's our response to that, Mike? How do you think we can tread the path of, you know, managing genuine concern around the economy, but also getting across the importance of this substantial pay rise to our members?
I think what I'd want to start with on this question is that the nursing profession is quoted year after year as being one of the most trusted professions within the UK. And on that, if we start to tell people about the amount of nurses we've got on food banks who are having to work extra shifts to just pay their way through daily living, then using that reputation, hopefully they will come to talk to us about it. But at the end of the day, is that no one really worried about asking that question when industry was booming and everybody was getting big pay rises then. And I think there's a balance to have, is that, yeah, people will be worried, but at the end of the day, health is the only issue that covers every single person in this country. And if you haven't got nurses who are the glue of the NHS, then you haven't got an NHS. And as Graham said, if you haven't got nurses, the hospitals would be empty. So what we have to do is we have to be constructive in the way that we talk about ourselves and the value of the services that we provide to society in general, and remind people that nurses are there at the start and the middle and at the end of people's lives. And we have to construct that story which takes them along that path. But at the end of the day, a government who has got an 80% an 80-seat majority in Parliament and is prepared to walk away from Europe without a deal is a big problem. But on one last point is that it's really important for the RCN in this pay round is not to be reactive to what the press says. What we should be doing is taking out big full-page adverts in the Telegraph and the Financial Times and taking our case to the public and not waiting for it to be the other way around. I think what we need to do during this pay round is we need to be more aggressive in the way that we promote ourselves. We need to be more aggressive of how we value ourselves, with our employers. That's the way we're going to do it. And we need to be selective. It's no good going out. It's no good me going out into, you know, I live in Kensington, which is one of the poorest areas in the country. It's no good creating around here saying, you know, pay us more, because everyone would agree with us because they rely on the health service to get through their daily lives. Where we should be going down to protest is Islington or Kensington, London. They're the places that we should be going around to demonstrate. And so that's what I think. Let's take the fight to those areas where we haven't traditionally taken it before, and especially start where, you know, if Boris Johnson wants to rule this country through the Telegraph, through the Daily Telegraph paywall, so we can't see what he's saying as our Prime Minister, let's take it back to the Telegraph and put our case in the paper so he can read it over breakfast. That's what
I'm sure our campaign team have been writing notes in that last bit, Mike, about the way forward. Thank you. I'm afraid we've run out of time, Graham. I can't bring you in on that one now.
No.
We got filibustered by Mike there at the end. But thank you both for your comments. It's been a very fast hour. Thank you for everyone that's been watching, sending your comments in. The conversation continues. I think the main message from me at the end of this is we've got to keep talking. Anyone who's watched this, please go and talk to people in your workplace, talk to your friends, your families about the need for a significant pay rise for nursing, to keep patients safe, to keep our population safe, so we have enough carers and nurses and other healthcare workers within our workforce. I'm just going to highlight the fact we have the next webinar of like this is on the 23rd of September, and that is exclusively for reps. So if you want to tell any of our workplace representatives, there is a specific webinar for them next week. Also, if you go on the RCN website, you can and under the Fair Pay Now campaign page, you can order materials, campaign materials now directly. If you want to do it via your branches or individually, you can do that. So you can pre-order campaign material for it to move forward with. So at 20:59, I just want to say thank you once again for everyone who tuned in. It's been really enjoyable, some great questions again, and we shall see you next time. Thank you.
Bye, folks. Thanks.